Hey everybody. Hey everybody.
Oh, hey.
Hey. We are live here, guys. How's everybody doing tonight?
We're good here.
Good, good, good. We are honored, at least I'm honored, to have Jeffrey Scott on tonight from Saftey Green. How you doing, Jeffrey?
I'm doing fantastic.
Awesome. We're doing excellent.
Excellente.
Yeah.
Question: how's my camera and how's the connection?
Your camera is...
The camera sucks.
The camera's not good, but your connection is way better.
I bought a webcam, but I forgot my little... I only have 2 USB ports.
Oh, okay.
Little dongle.
Yeah, my little dongle with the thingamajiggers.
We still talking about your camera?
So, before these two go at each other for 20 minutes straight.
That's why
it's not going to take me that long.
Right? Yeah.
Be quiet and let the man talk.
3 to 5 sentences and it's over.
Yeah, that's usually all it takes on doing this one. It's how many years now? About 5 years, about 2-3 sentences in, somebody's getting a beating. I don't know who it is, but Mark's going after somebody.
Someone's taking a choking.
So I'm sure, if there's something, or if someone actually that's watching this and they don't know who Jeffrey Scott is, who is Jeffrey Scott? I mean, you're of course a window cleaner. You're a high-rise window cleaner. You own several businesses, correct? But you also do training, which is like something we would like. I mean, because we've had a couple of pretty awesome high-rise window cleaners on here. But it's kind of nice to maybe talk to someone. Hi, Mom. It's kind of nice to... My mom watches this, Jeffrey. My mom.
Always supporting you, buddy.
Yeah, my mom's always supporting me. But Mark thought it would be great to have someone with your experience as far as training and people in safety on. So what is all that? Can you give us kind of a rundown of who you are so that way if people don't know, they now will know?
Sure. I'm just a lifetime window cleaner at this point. I'm a second generation guy. My old man started cleaning windows in the Des Moines, Iowa area through a church that they were involved in. At the time, Jerry and Russ Rigdon, and Jerry Rigdon's the guy that Companion Tools, he developed the ledger. Him and his brother, that's who trained my dad. Okay. And at the time, it was a way for them to get quality labor at a reasonable rate. These guys were clean cut, articulate, the church.
Nice.
Presented well. It created extra tithing revenue for this church, which tithed heavily. And then once these guys got some background in running a route style company, supposed to go off into the world, go find their own area, and then create their own company, thereby also spreading the church, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the program my old man got in. He ended up in central Wisconsin after leaving Des Moines, Iowa. At that time, he was running a route residential company, and that's when I was born. Things for them started out lean. He tells stories of times when daycare was light. Me and my brother would be in the back of the car. We'd be out in a satellite township somewhere. People hadn't paid up, and we didn't have gas to get home. Things were real lean back then, real bootstrap. He just kept building that company until picked up larger work like you do, got into some residential, a lot of route work. So I started subcontracting routes out to other guys who still run those routes today and run companies. And then, larger and larger work came. And then I remember a large investment was the spider stage, an old spider stage, went down to Chicago and picked up a single basket, coiled the cable underneath on a drum. We would hang that thing just off of an I-beam, the plate on the back, a couple of weights, not tied back to shit. And that became our high-rise business. And he got into that right around the time when I was getting into middle school, late grade school and stuff. So I was riding that basket up and down. We didn't have harnesses. We didn't know what they were. Developing through that, I got the opportunity to work for him most of my life. When I was in college, I went to school 4 days. I ran every Friday. I'd go run a route in another town, and that's how I paid for school. I did join the service to help pay for school. Coming out of there, ended up moving down to Madison. continuing school, and then starting getting back into window cleaning. First for my father's company. By that time, had moved down to southern Wisconsin and started taking on larger work, and that's when we started getting on rope.
What about year was that, Jeffrey? Around when?
Rope?
Yeah.
The first time I was on rope, I was 14 years old. When I started working on rope, I was in high school in the summers.
Mm-hmm.
So if I graduated in 91, that would have been like 87. I was on rope, before. I wasn't really working until I was in high school. I wasn't really working alongside of the other guys. But then in high school, that's what it was all about. We were roofing and roping, and those were Sky Genie days. We were still rappelling off of the I-beam on the spider stage for a while, and then we had a really good relationship with Jack Fitch, who developed Fitch rollers out of Iowa.
The mule and
the horse, the mid-size roller.
Yeah.
Because we were using that spider stage, my dad had developed this steel. It was like a steel parapet wall roller, but for the spider stage. So we were rolling buildings with a spider stage, not tight back.
In a basket, yeah.
Basket, yeah. And he liked that design and was developing his parapet wall rollers at the same time out of aluminum. He had brought the first prototype beams up to Wausau, Wisconsin. We set them up on parking garages. They weren't tied back to shit. We started throwing weights over the side and watching these things flex and bounce.
Yeah.
And the design that he put together is just crazy. It was so good. It blows anything that exists out of the water today. Its adaptability, the way that it could move and adjust to everything.
Yeah. They had the horse, the mule or something. I remember when I first started my company, I just couldn't afford that equipment at the time, but I wanted it. I knew that. And a guy that I worked for had an old mule. And I mean, it looked like it was beat to death, but it's a good piece of equipment,
Get your hands on nowadays, and even harder yet are the instruction manuals.
Yeah.
But you can put all that together, and then write up your own training program in-house. They're still usable. It's not you can sell between companies or anything like that. There's no liability insurance on them anymore.
Yeah. They still make them, or?
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Fitch is no longer in business as far as I know.
I mean, I know there was a lot of when they started implementing roller systems into the industry. I know there was a lot of accidents, but not necessarily equipment failure, just stupidity of the people operating them.
Yeah. So that would be like a general duty clause violation, which would be for any piece of equipment, like if you use it outside the operator's instructions.
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing with it at that point, you're finable. But people were using them as portable anchors, which no such thing exists even today as a portable anchor. They help with mobility, getting side to side. Under federal OSHA, you can still move side to side. In some state OSHAs, you can't. In Minnesota, you can't move outside of a 6-foot box. But if you're tying them back to certified anchors or under an IRA program, Industrial Rope Access Program, they're still very usable. But because you're tying back to certified structure or anchors anyway, unless you're booming out over something, there's really not a need for them anymore. Unless you're using them as a portable anchor. They used to, bread and butter on rolling sideways used to be on anything between like 3 and 5 or 7 stories.
Yeah, but and those are usually larger. Well, not always, but they're a large footprint of a building.
Yeah.
Only 3 to 5 stories. That could potentially be 300 drops or 6 with the roller.
Well, back in the day, that was our bread and butter. We rolled everything. If it was a 2-story building, we'd put a ladder, put a roller on our shoulder, go to the 2nd floor, hang that 2nd floor, and roll it.
Yeah, yeah. We used to even, if they have just a hatch, we'd pull every piece up over the wall and set it up because it didn't. Most 2-story, 3-story buildings have a hatch, not even a staircase to go to the roof. Yeah.
Turned ourselves into rope guys, and when you're a hammer, everything's a nail.
Yeah.
Everything you look at with those eyes.
Yeah.
Now, they're not as prevalent anymore because what we used to make our bread and butter on those, people hit with a water-fed pole now.
Yeah.
Once you go over 7 stories, you're better having 2 guys dropping than 1 guy in the roof rolling for efficiency. Turnaround times. But now the guys are going, 70, 80 feet with a pole. You can train somebody in a day and a half how to be proficient with that pole. It takes a year and a half to get somebody proficient to be able to roll work and work efficiently that way.
Well, yeah, and the worst thing that happens generally with the waterfed is you got to go back and redo it. You know.
We've learned it's a different product.
Yeah.
And we sell it that way. There's a lot of work that we take on because the customer doesn't like water-fed pole, and we can go traditional.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of clients we have that say, okay, can we get our loaf of bread for a dime instead of a quarter? Sure,
Right.
It's a different loaf of bread, right?
Right.
So that's there too. Everything has its place. It's just you got to sell it properly, not oversell yourself. Just like at anything.
Right.
But anyways, so we were in the rope, and then so late 80s, early 90s is when the IWCA formed up off of a letter that was written, the first meeting down in Lubbock, Texas. I wasn't part of that. My dad was. But shortly after that, those conventions became our family vacations.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be tagged along. Took a lot of training and classes through there. When things flipped over, things changed for me was when, because of our SPRAT affiliation, we started doing hands-on rescue training for the IWCA. Me and my dad were doing that. We were traveling around to the conventions and the board meetings and their quarterlies and doing that for people. And then around that same time, people within the IWCA who were running fairly large companies were coming to me and asking me for advice on this, that, and the other. Some of it was rigging, rope work. Some of it was how to run your company, how to hire employees, how to train. And so when it came to the point where my dad was selling his company, which kind of blindsided us all a little bit, but and the new owners came to me, and I could make a decision to kind of fill all these roles for this other entity, or start going build my own thing. And I thought to myself, it's at this point it's going to be nothing but hard work, because I had a lot of advantages with the networking, which at that time Facebook didn't even exist.
Right.
Social media didn't exist. But that IWCA networking wasn't as good, but kind of led to the same conclusions, where I could reach out to people, ask the questions I wanted, get the information I needed, and if I was willing to put the work in, we knew what the hurdles were going to be in front of us. We almost had that clairvoyant vision. We weren't getting blindsided by things and having to reinvent the wheel over and over like the people before us did. And now you watch the evolution with social media and things like this, and the groups out there, and my gosh, the university is at your fingertips. With no startup whatsoever, you don't have to learn anymore, or you don't have to search to learn anymore. It's all right there for you. You can watch the guys doing the great things you want to do and just emulate them. You can take on that apprenticeship. We couldn't do that in the past without getting the job from the company, emulating the services that you wanted to do, and being honest with them that, hey, I want to learn from you. I want to fill these roles, but after this time, I want to empower myself to be able to do this sort of thing as well.
Right.
It's so much easier now. It's been a lot of change. But anyway, when his company sold, I made the jump and started knocking on doors. Started out residential. I went down that route. Didn't want to step on their toes at all. They were still affiliated with the new owner for like 5 years to keep their revenue levels up, keep them moving in the right directions, get their final payouts. So I didn't want to step on their toes at all. So we went residential, knocking on doors. At that time, I had a mortgage, I had a child, but I had no income. I had little to no savings. So it was really very, very hand to mouth. That was in.
So wait, let me interrupt you for a minute. Were you offered to stay on the company as a worker or consultant or anything, or you said you had to make a decision, but then you just skipped over to write in. Did they make you an offer?
They didn't come to me with a formal offer at all. It was either just fill this role. There were a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing. What ended for me was the path of ever having any type of an in-house buyout from the company that I was working for. Mm-hmm. That ended. That was kind of a slap. But a lot of that was because they were going through some marital problems at the same time, and that sale was pretty much forced.
Mm-hmm.
It had to have. You had to, at that point, it was sell it or take a really big hit.
Yeah.
And so no. If you're asking, was I offered like to take on like an operations manager position or something?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Now, well, let me ask you this: your father owned the company, was it a substantial company? Meaning, did it have 5 employees, 10 employees, 3 employees?
They usually average between 15 and 20. They were running anywhere from 1.8 to like 2.5 million, up and down. The big thing with their company was they ran very efficiently, exceedingly efficiently. They officed out of their home. They had no shop space. Everything was out of vans, out of trucks. So like a foreman would take a truck home at night. He would meet and pick up his crew in the morning on the way into their job sites wherever they were.
Yeah.
So very low overhead. We all worked in a very different manner back then. We were very regimented. You got everything flowed. It was very efficient. And we pushed really hard. We were knocking shit out. Their EBITDA and the efficiency of for every dollar they put into their company, the dollar that they got out was larger than most in our industry. We're able to sell very well. They sold better than anyone I've heard of to date, and that was 14, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I would never be able. I couldn't even imagine being able to sell at the levels that they did. But so ultimately I'm trying to build something I can sell at a number where I'm going to be happy. I can sustain without continuing what I'm doing.
Makes sense.
For me, that's a much smaller number.
Right.
I can live in a more efficient way.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, started up knocking on doors, houses. It was hand to mouth. Then we went through. We didn't have a lot of marketing budget. When I had enough money to pay the bills and a little extra, it was door hangers. So then it was like do your house or 2 a day, fill your 8 to 10 hours, then go hang 100 door hangers. Then it was the scheduling, the books, the billing. There wasn't a lot of sleep time. And then some of you guys have been through this. You want that first employee, but you got to put that work together for them first.
Right.
You're running that and doing all that on top of it.
Yep.
After that, it took me about a year and a half to put that first guy on. And we were still residential at the time. And then there was another big turn for me was there was a competitor in town who found out I had broken away from the company I was working for, knew I had a high-rise background, and look, we've got these property managers wrapped up. We can't do their towers. We've got this other crew doing them. We're not real happy with what's going on. Can you bid these towers for me? I can't remember if there's 10 or 12 of them, but I went out and bid them all and got them all, which means I sold them too cheap, right?
Not necessarily. Yeah, not all the time. With property managers, no.
We were subbing this from another company at the time, so there's a market there somewhere. Anyway, so I started rocking these things out. I had a 3-year deal with this company. I don't want to name names anywhere, but we were pulling a lot of money out of these jobs because I was doing them personally, which means we were flying through them. I going and I was just rocking through these jobs with a lot of overhead. I don't know the reason, I can only make guesses, but they saw the profit that we were taking out, and they brought some guys up out of Chicago and brought that work back in-house after 2 years.
Yeah.
So now I had a few guys working for me, that I had their mouths to feed, their families to feed, and
it's a whole new
a lot
game.
of eggs in that basket.
Yeah.
At the time, when that had happened, I had about 30 grand saved up for marketing for the residential push. Because we were just learning how to do the turnkey thing with the EDDM, all the stuff you learn when social media comes out, that we didn't even know about. So we were getting all ramped up to do that, and took that money and put it into high-rise equipment. I went out and got some Fitch mules. I went out and got a bunch of rope and harnesses and the whole deal. But when that work got pulled, we kind of spread our wings again, and we reached out to other larger companies in metros in the northern Midwest. And sometimes we were offering ourselves out just as labor. Sometimes it was our stuff that they couldn't get to because we had a rope experience that they didn't. There were various reasons. That happened for a few years, and then what was happening is my employees started getting taken from me by those people under the table, cash money.
Yep.
So now I'm losing employees, So we had to spin again, and as a company policy now, we don't subcontract anything ever. Right now I should say in large commercial. Right now I do have, for one close friend who runs a company over in the Milwaukee area, they've got a franchise that they have some things over here that we're catching for them. And you could call that a subcontract, right?
Yeah.
But we don't take on any large work that we subcontract whatsoever. Everything we hold the contract for. For us, the contract is for the sale of the company. That's the value.
Right.
So that spun us, and then people started knowing that we were out there doing rope work. The competitors in the area already knew who I was because I had been working for the first company for so long. And it got to the point where if I would have picked up local jobs only, they'd know where those jobs were, could easily take a small loss or just do them cheaper than I'm doing them, take them away from me, and I'm out of luck. So growing up a wrestler, I went into a wrestler sprawl. I started spreading out. That's why I went to Milwaukee, Chicago, Minneapolis. We were picking up jobs all over. Indianapolis, we went down to Louisiana for a job. We've done jobs in Pittsburgh. We started spreading out and learning how to cherry pick jobs. If they can't find us, you can't take us out. And then once we had enough business that we could come back into the areas we wanted to work in and not bid on price, that's what we did.
So now, did you have a no-compete with the company that bought your father's business?
No, not at all.
I'm sorry?
No, not at all. None.
Okay, and you didn't feel, after over 5 years, you didn't have the urge to go back into some of the better contacts?
After they were separated from the company completely, I did exactly that.
Okay, yeah,
I know the contacts, right?
Sure. You know the prices, you know everything.
I know a lot, more than I probably should, you know.
Yeah.
I sold a lot of the jobs.
Yeah.
You know, I was the contact. I ran a lot of the jobs.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, it didn't really matter. And some of them I went into a little earlier than that, like large RFBs, requests for bid offers, that are getting sent out by government agencies or universities. Mm-hmm. Those are open market anyway, you know. Mm-hmm. It's open bid, you know, so it doesn't really matter, you know. The benefit I had is, I ran the jobs. I know how to run them efficiently. I know where the numbers are going to work. I don't have to follow other people's numbers.
Right.
But some of those, even back then, getting into some of those, it was still low bid work.
Yeah.
Right? And we did take some of that on. As you grow, you're going to have to. Now, that's not the type of work we do. We still hold a lot of those contracts, but the RFBs are written up in ways that other people can't even really bid on them properly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they want to keep us in there.
Yeah.
And some of them, we know that, yes, the RFB might be a low bid job, but there's going to be added services here or there that are going to, you know, that aren't even listed that you're going to get your hands on, you know, that are going to compensate for all that. It's a learning curve, you know, just like any business, you know, but that's pretty much my story. That's how we kind of came up. You know, a big part of that I left out was back in the late 90s when I was still working for my dad. We got hooked up with SPRAT, Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians. Our first training session was on the Hoover Dam. We got to rappel off the spillways around the dam, go down and up. We didn't rappel top to bottom on the dam. We got to rappel down and then climb back up. We got to rappel off of towers over the dam, over the canyon, and that was all before the bridge was there. Mm-hmm. But that experience changed me, and I think changed a lot of the people that were there. On how we were operating, as we didn't even call it rope descent systems back then. We were just window cleaners.
Yeah.
There's professional rope access technicians, which came from a different world, right? And how the systems work. Once we saw how much safer what we do could be, it changed us. And not only the rigging applications, like now we can get to things other people can't get to, you know. Yeah. It's really fun to go after swing stage jobs because we can be in and out of them before they can set up, right? Mm-hmm. You know, it's just it's a different level of education and knowledge that can really advance what you can access.
Sure.
You know, but because of that is a lot of the reason I got involved in the training with the IWCA, and then afterwards with Saftey Green Training and trying to spread that knowledge as much as I could, you know, and pretty much created a hybrid system that works. Industrial rope access system that works within a chair, you know, within a seat board, and extra connection points, always maintaining 2 points of contact, you know, just different rigging procedures.
Yeah. So if someone wants to learn how to do rope access work, do they have to come to you? Do you go to them? How does that work?
Well, I don't have to be involved at all.
Uh-huh.
But if they'd like me to be, we currently, what Saftey Green Training does is runs 2 separate programs. Typically once a month, we do an open enrollment program where people do come up to Madison, Wisconsin for a 2-day event. we max that class at usually 12 people. And then the first day is 6 to 8 hours of classroom, going through all the regulations, how to mitigate them, going through all the gear, how to select it, how to wear it, how to take care of it, how to use it together. We go through some rigging theory. We get into we start to talk about knots and tying knots and things like that. And usually homework day one is just to learn your 3 knots that we can do everything with.
Yeah.
Day 2, we make sure those knots have been learned, and then we get into self-rescue within the shop setting. We get into pick-off rescue within a shop setting, and pick-off rescue is well above what we call authorized user, which is what people are looking for. Then we'll go out to a building and we'll rig it and do like a 12 to 15 foot rappel or 15-story rappel. Somewhere in Madison.
So do you get any guys that sit for the first day, go through the knots and everything, and then show up the second day and you put them on a 15-story building and they're like, "No, it's not going to happen"?
That would be me. I would be that kid. Me.
I've 2 or 3 people ever.
Yeah.
Out of thousands,
Yeah.
There's been, people are, the way that we run the program, it builds confidence every step of the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like first and I start out scaring the shit out of people. I show movies and videos of people taking diggers and dying and news articles and reports, of all the bad things that can happen, because once we have that attention, now we can figure out how not to let that happen.
Right.
And all that. And then we go through the equipment, you become familiar with it. And then you learn how the equipment works, what the load ratings are, so it's not just a nylon strap anymore. That nylon strap is going to hold over 10,000 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then when we're getting into self-rescue, you're getting the equipment on, you're loading it onto you're assessing the rope with it, you're loading it onto the rope, you're stepping off of a ladder, you're feeling what it feels like. Mm-hmm. Then actually we're simulating a mainline brake, so you're going into a shock load, a simulated shock load, and you're hanging in your harness and fall arrest. So you're sitting there feeling worst case scenario.
Right.
And then you feel how easy it is to get out of that scenario when that rope is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Now how are we getting to the ground now?
Yeah.
Once people understand how easy it is, it's mind-blowing that everybody doesn't know this already, right?
Right.
Guys are getting on swing stages out there without knowing self-rescue.
Right.
That's the only reason we're seeing these guys floating around, hanging on the news, and
you see a lot of that, man.
Yeah, and
what you don't see a lot of on the news is a guy on a chair in that same predicament. You don't see that. It's always some guy on a swing stage. It's always some guy on a swing stage.
Well, because there's a lot less training that could potentially go into swing stage. They rig it up and say, "Okay, stand here, push this button, and you're going to clean windows in front of it," not thinking. Now, I got a spider stage story for you. In the late 80s, early 90s, they put a building in downtown Miami called the Victor Ferris building. At the time, it was the biggest building in our state, and it was 63 stories, if I remember correctly. And Spider put their equipment on the building, and I went down with a guy, John, that trained me, and we went up. They wanted 2 window cleaners to ride the stage. We didn't go to wash windows. We wanted to get familiar with the equipment. Mm-hmm. Okay, they wanted local guys. So we went down there, and I remember stages all the way up at the top of the roof, 63 stories up with about a 12-foot parapet. They had the davit arms and everything all set. We climb up on the little catwalk, and John that works with me, we had 2 600-foot pieces of rope. And the guy's like, "Oh, you don't need that." And we're like, "What? Where's the safety lines?" And he goes, No. You're going to just hook yourself right to the stage." And I looked at John, and I didn't know that much because I was still training. And I go, "Well, wait a minute. If that thing goes down, I'm not going with it." And he goes, John looks at him and goes, "Either we tie these ropes and put our harnesses to ride your stage, or we're going home."
Right.
We're not. I don't care how state of the art your equipment is. I am not being tied to that thing. And that was Spider stage. I remember that to this day. It scared the shit out of me.
So is that common practice, or is that just something that happened back in the day? Do they ride those stages without safety lines?
No, they all do now.
Oh, okay.
And there's 2. It depends exactly what it was. Like a standard swing stage, you really want safety lines hanging from an independent point on the roof.
Yes.
Or also rated point. But if you're in a BMU, a building maintenance unit, which is built into the system, like that's the big arm that comes around and moves around the building and wraps it up and down.
Drives, yeah.
Yeah, then they're clipping into the basket itself, right? Which I'm leery about the whole thing.
Still, dude. No way, dude.
Yeah, that's what they wanted us to do. And John was like, that's not going to happen.
No, we don't. It's not our bread and butter. We don't. I try to. I've got an ISSA competent person card for swing stage, but we avoid swing stage like the plague.
Yeah.
It's not bread and butter. It's not my company's setup. When we're looking to be efficient, right? We want to get. We're looking for a win-win situation. So we want to be able to come into a job, be able to offer the client possibly a lower number overall, but we're going to come out taking a much higher man-hour rate because of efficiency on the way that we're going to rig the job and do it. Once you get on a swing stage or a BMU, that machine works at the same pace.
Yeah.
No matter who's on it. So you're no longer, the only way to get competitive advantage there is not through systems or even salesmanship or quality. The only way to get competitive advantage in that situation is who's paying their labor the least.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a game I'm willing to play.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Rising tide raises all ships. That's who we want to be. I came up a window cleaner. I'm still on the side of the building regularly. I want, we want to find jobs where my jobs can make more money, where my guys can make more money. We are hourly, but we're hourly by performance, right? There's constant reviews, there's constant performance adjustments. If guys are trending lower, they're invited into the office. If they're trending higher, they're invited into the office. Through our systems, they can invite themselves into the office, right, to look at an advancement. That being said, if everybody is more than making their nut, then the overall percentage of labor is going to be lower on that job. When that happens, we're bonusing that back to our
you've got a fixed budget on the building, and if they're good at what they do, you got to take care of them.
Yeah,
that's right. But it's kind of a hybrid system.
Is that? And I hate to cut you off. Is that standard practice in the high-rise industry, or are there guys that own companies that are like, I'm keeping that money. I don't care how fast you are.
Yeah.
For the board, man. People are people.
Good.
Yeah. There's good people, there's bad people in every endeavor, and some of them do very well. There's businessmen who own these large window cleaning companies that have never cleaned a window. They're hired out of college for their business acumen, their divisions. That's my competition. That's not me. We're coming from a different angle. We're going to come in efficient and clean. We're going to do what we say we're going to do. We're not going to have yahoos on the side of the building. We're not going to cause you problems. You're likely not even know we're there.
Right.
We want to out, and we want the repetition. First time you get more efficient as you go through a project. So we don't want one and dones. We don't do construction cleans anymore. We're strictly looking for long-term maintenance contracts because that's where my sale is. Right? The residential company, that's cash flow. Especially we're seasonal, so the cash flow starts up early. Nowadays, it's kind of flipped on us a little bit. We've been operating for 2-3 weeks now, but it's all smaller commercial. Well, what we call small commercial,
right?
Which is like university complexes, right? Where we're aerial lift work, water-fed pole work. If you're watching Facebook, I'm sure you've seen our pictures what we're out there doing.
Right.
But we're back on rope next week. But even those smaller jobs keep that cash going, because when you got these bigger projects, you're out 30, 60, 90, 120 days. You got to bankroll that shit.
Oh yeah.
you got to earn your way into the large projects.
Right.
Yeah.
You hear people talk in some of these groups. Oh, ask for this much up front, or do that and do this. These guys don't run companies that are successful.
No, there is. I did a restoration job where they started to realize this job was going to go 60 to 90 days. And they actually, and I went into it blind. I went into it as a window cleaner that knew how to restore glass, but never taking on a 20-story building for restoration, right? So I was like, look at that number I'm going to get, and then I throw it out there, and they take it, okay? And it wasn't 10 days when they called me into the office and said, hey, we're kind of more comfortable, number one, not getting that giant invoice, but we're kind of thinking we need to give you progress payments. So at the end of every week, we want you to submit an invoice, and then within 10 days you're going to get paid. That, believe it or not, if they hadn't done that, I would have struggled 90 days to make payroll for 4 guys. Okay.
Because I mean, you're tying everything up into that one job.
I'm looking at the end of the rainbow going, can I reach the end? Because I got to make payroll for the next 90 days, and I got 90% of my labor force on this one job. And I was like, thank you so much. So I didn't get that big home run check at the end, but I got, understand what I'm saying? Yeah. After the first check, I started to see the profits that we're going to pull out of it, and it really changed the way I thought. But people sit there and, like you just mentioned, get money up front. For window cleaning, if you're an electrician and you got to buy 4,000 lights for a rooftop, that's a little bit different to get money up front. But window cleaning, you're not outlaying anything but your labor, your time, and your knowledge. You know what I'm saying? So it's very rare that, especially a property management company, is going to go, yeah, we're going to give you $5,000 up front, $5,000 halfway through, and $5,000 when you're done. That doesn't really happen. Not in my world.
It's not going to happen. One, they can't get that from their boards, right? That they're working with. And what you're telling that property management company is, look, I want you to have faith in me. You have to want, which are okay things to ask, but would they have faith in you when the next player is established and does not ask you for things, right? So it's not that it can't happen, but you're asking for something over and above. Now, just like you said, restoration jobs, different styles of restoration jobs, by all means. A lot of times, we don't even ask for progress payments. We break the project into separate invoices, like separate bid packages.
Yeah.
Like this is project 1, 2, 3, 4, on the building.
Yeah. Well, and inevitably what happened here was they started to realize, like after the first, it's hard to submit an invoice for 7 rows of windows when there's 14 rows in the front of the building, let's say. So then after the second progress payment, I said, look, we're just going to bill it by the exposure. So you've already paid for this much. So when we finish the west side, you're getting a bill for the west side. Then we finish the north side. You understand what I'm saying? And then it had streamlined it to where I was comfortable with it, and so were they.
Right on.
But I mean, I've heard window cleaners say shit like, well, gas prices went up, so I'm putting a fuel surcharge. And I'm like, they're going to fire you no matter who you are. You got to get to your job. That's part of. You can't go into your boss and say, gas went up, I'm a secretary, and now I need more money because I got to get here every day. No, that's part of doing business. If you're a taxi, if you're a truck driver delivering goods, a fuel surcharge is not something they're going to really frown too much upon. They're not going to like it.
I'm Jim the route guy. I'm going to need to have to.
I need
to charge you $5 extra because.
Yes. They're going to go pound sand, dude.
Yeah, dude. Get the fuck out of here,
get
man.
out.
People are so. I find funny with window cleaners. They're so ridiculous with their demands as far as getting paid. But if you put a tool in front of their face or like a hat, they like, oh my God, I can't believe you, $35. They shit their pants. It's like,
but they're also the same guy gets $20 a window for the outside only.
Yeah.
Creatures of habit.
Everyone is Seth Byers of the Seth Byers of window cleaning on Facebook. Everybody's super rich.
Yeah.
You gotta start someplace, and I remember being hand to mouth back in the day. You know, we all got to start there. We all got to learn, and really, the best owners and people of growth you see out there did start from lower down on the chain.
Right.
It definitely helps with your experience of becoming a business owner. I mean, when I started cleaning windows, I made $11 an hour, and I worked 9 months a year. And it's, the struggles that last week you're working, you're like, oh shit, like I'm gonna have to figure something out for the next 2 or 3 months. So you kind of know, being an employee, what it's gonna take to retain an employee. I think. Yeah. You know what I mean? Once you go into business for yourself, it definitely gives you like a leg up, I think, understanding how the market works.
Yeah, exactly. I think that helps. I think I've lost some of that now in translation of generations. I'm a Gen Xer, through and through, and trying to even communicate with some of our early 20-somethings right now is that's my biggest challenge. I need to trying to be that emotional guy. Constantly bringing their spirit up. Instead of just cracking a whip somewhere and saying, how come this isn't done yet?
Exactly.
We came up. Those have been some of the harder challenges, but definitely, as a window cleaner, I think it changes how you run a company. And to watch the progress that these guys make when they come from, some of them, they get in and they're asking a lot of questions. People are shunning them almost because they're asking stupid questions that we've all answered thousands of times.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they see some success, then they turn into the loudmouth, right? They get to tell everyone else how to do it.
Yeah.
They're talking way above their pay grade, right?
Well, that's just traditional with window cleaners. I remember when I first got onto Facebook, and it was maybe a month in, I go, I wonder if there's any window cleaning stuff here. And I'm like, I type in window cleaning, and I got right to professional window cleaning, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Let me join this group. And I joined this group. And at the time, I was doing a lot of high-rise, so I started putting up pictures, and I was like not realizing what was about to happen to me. You understand? Because it was all new. And then I get this guy telling me how, just like you said, how he would do this job. And then I'll troll his page, and I'm like, wait a minute. Your biggest accomplishment is a one-story, $200 house, and you're going to tell me how to do this job I've been doing for 10 years?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of that.
You got to
so
thicken
much
up
of
your
that.
skin or don't do it. Yeah.
I think it's too, like, this is such like a male-dominated business, and when you get 20-something males, I mean, I remember my early 20s, I was a cocky asshole. You know what I mean? It's like you almost forget when you slide out of that, like what you were like, and then you see the same. They just have access to the internet now. I mean, I wasn't able to say this shit to like 200
strangers.
People.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're bragging when you got $1,000 at the end of the week.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's because you feel like you're hot shit. So I think sometimes it's forgetting what you were like the further you get away from that.
Right. As you get older,
I find it funny. Honestly.
Well, go ahead.
I'm sorry, these guys progress. They grow out of that, then they grow into leaders. They get some guys working for them. They tend to mellow out. And some of them just become inspirational with the growth that they can do so fast.
Right.
You see some of these guys that, hey, I remember when you were looking at a bucket or, living in a tent or whatever, and now they're running empires and they are inspirational and their mindset is right,
Or they're super inspirational, but they don't ever become the inspiration they try to speak of. There's a lot of that too. There's a lot of dudes that are kind of turds. They think they're doing something, but they're just trying to dick people around. There's a bunch of that as well. Not everybody's inspiration. Not everyone is that fortunate, unfortunately. There's a lot of guys that fake it and never make it, you know what I mean, unfortunately.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb. I think Jeffrey pointed something out that I hadn't thought of in a very long time, and it's appreciated when he said, I'm a owner, I'm still on the building, I'm running this company that's very successful, but I'm still getting my hands dirty. Now that's success to me. Okay, because I worked for a guy before I started my company after I finished working for my father. And his biggest decision of the day was, where are we going for lunch? You know what I'm saying? Now, this is the same guy that told me I came up doing block and tackle. And I mean, he'd show up at the job and every window, we used to call it the jellyfish drip, that typical half moon with the tentacles hanging down. And we just follow behind him and clean up the mess. And I'm like, because I was cocky and I was his only high-rise, well, there was two of us, but high-rise guy that showed up every day, I was like, dude, you're a liar. You had a bread route. You've never cleaned windows in your life, because he told me about all his big businesses in upstate New York and all this other bullshit, but you seem to be very genuine. Your stories tell me that you're a genuine dude, so I appreciate that.
Jeffrey, we actually have a question from Jacob Dell. He, just out of curiosity, what is the heaviest weight you can be as a high-rise window cleaner? Asking for Mark.
Oh, yeah. Listen, excuse me for 1 second before you answer that. Jacob, we would need ship rope for you. Go ahead.
Well, the sky's really the limit as long as everything is consciously put into place. Most stuff is rated for a 220-pound man taking a 6-foot shock load on their equipment, and then everything, the safety factor of 4 above that. So once you get up to be like 275 and bigger, you want to start thinking about that stuff. Now,
So me and Jacob, okay.
No, you guys can still do it. You can't lean back and break windows.
Hey, shit for yourself. I weigh 263, fat boy.
No, I've been 280. I've had Diego working for me at the time. He was like 280, 290.
Wow.
Diego's a big boy, man. He's stocky, boy. He's a stocky dude.
I loved having him around, man.
Yeah.
So fun, so much. He's inspirational, always positive. And it's fun to get someone out and work side by side with them where you want to push each other. You know?
Yeah.
And you look at a job and say, what did we do on this last time? We're going to beat it, right? And you just keep pushing each other day in and day out and trying to prove something to yourselves. That's fun, you know?
Yeah.
Enjoyed that. But so I was fairly large. He was fairly large. I've had other big boys. I've had like a dude that was 6'6". He was way over 300 pounds. You just have to start looking at the gears. You have a 4-to-1 rating built into everything, and as long as you have at least a 2-to-1 rating, you're still going to be kosher and compliant, right?
Yeah.
So you'd start looking at things like if I'm rigging on certified anchors and I'm spreading my anchors out and trying to isolate between them, I want to look at my rigging angles, right? Because at like 90, if I got a 100-pound load hanging at 90 for the 90-degree rigging angle, I've got 70 pounds on each anchor, right, or each attachment point, which is more than I actually weigh.
Yeah.
100. That makes 140, and I weigh 100, right? As you open that angle out, that starts to jump exponentially. At 120 or 1-to-1, you doubled your load. That like just getting barely over 120, that starts jumping exponentially. So you want to start watching your rigging. If you're using things like parapet clamps on a parapet wall that's like stacked Brit that's been rated for something, you want to know what those ratings are because you could exceed them in that case, right?
Right.
So you do it. You just want to be conscious of it. Back in the day, we used to use 1/2-inch rope, 12 mil, because it had a higher tensile strength and a little better stretch on it. Now we're all on 7/16, but the load ratings are higher on them now. You know.
Right. Yeah, they're up over 6,000 pounds. Some of them 6 and 8. Yeah.
Yeah, 9 and higher.
Yeah.
Back in the day, your 1/2-inch ropes were like 10, 11, 12,000 pound tests.
Yeah. And Sky Genie always recommended, if that's what you're using at that time, the 1/2-inch rope, correct?
I hated Sky Genie. You don't ever ride a Sky Genie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I told the story last time. I was surprised that what's his name was riding. Fletcher was riding a Sky Genie. I'm like, dude.
Guys in Chicago still riding Genies, and there's guys on the East Coast riding Genies.
Yeah.
Most riding their Genies are Millers now. They have the handle brake on them.
Yeah.
The rope is, some of them are running regular rope through them. Sky Genie, you have to run Sky Genie rope through.
Yeah.
Sky Genie rope is not the same quality as other rope out there, right? It's got a lot of stretch. Back in the day, you had to run 2 ropes through a canister, and then you'd have your backup. There's still a province in Canada where you have to run a 3-line system that way.
Wow.
But nowadays, the twist it puts on a rope is just ridiculous, right?
But it can fracture the core.
Yeah.
If it's not the right rope. Yeah.
We've never had any major accidents. When I was still in high school, we were doing a job. Actually, it's a job they did a video on. Before there was dirty jobs, there was danger pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Danger pay came up to Madison, Wisconsin, did some high-rise drops with us on this building, and on that building, they were filming on the other side of the building. I had the sheath on my canister, blew right the hell off.
Yeah.
That little aluminum sheath.
Yeah.
It's cracking, stress cracks right in half. We never saw it coming. So I went to fall arrest. We were using short gibs at the time already, but I'm in fall arrest. I had nothing to do a step up with. I didn't have another descender. My brother was working on the site. He tied another sheath on and just pulled it up, stuck it on, could do my step up. But doing a step up on a canister sucks.
Yeah.
All that stretch,
Yeah. So what is your preferred descender now?
Well, preferred on like what's compliant and what we should.
No, what is it that you recommend guys learn with? Let's start that way.
Petzl ID.
Yeah.
Yeah, Petzl ID. It's the safest device out there right now.
Yeah.
It's been refined in the last few years. A Petzl ID, the way that you flip the rope over the bevel, used to also put twist on your rope, but now it can be used in a straight S pattern because they've reinforced the groove and notched it where the rope can come in a straight S pattern, so it runs like a stop or an SRT, which SRT don't think are legal anymore because they're squeezed to go.
Really? I have an SRT. I watched the Dirty Jobs episode and I was like, I'm going to get me an SRT. I reached out to a guy in Hawaii. He said, get the stainless. But I found it creeped with me. Yeah. And again, I was a rack and bar guy. Yeah. And and you can probably understand, changing descenders, like after you've learned with a particular thing, is not an easy thing to do. At least not for me.
Yeah. Once you do it a lot, it gets easier, just like anything, right?
Yeah.
You're on a lot of different gear and you go back and forth, and you kind of lose that. But for guys that's the reason guys are using Genies for the most part. It's because I learned on this, I'm comfortable with it, and feel safe. A little training, and they jump off of it in a heartbeat. And once you showed them the advantages to using a different descender, right? Like they can't go up at all. They've got constant stretch. They've got rope twist. None of that's the case with an ID. Like on a rack, I love racks, and I wish they were still legal, but they're dangerous. We never saw them as dangerous back in the day because we were used to them.
Yeah.
I had no problem going to fall arrest. We did it all the time. Going to our fall arrest point. You talk to any industrial rope access tech, and that's a no-no. You never go to one point of contact ever. Like, that's the devil, right? And it is better thinking. But the Petzl ID, if you pull too hard, like you pull through your sweet spot, you have to reset it. If it gets away from you, it stops on its own. You have to reset it.
Yeah.
Bring it backwards, it's not going anywhere. You have to reset it. But most importantly, it recaptures very easily. I can go up rope with it, right? Which makes your self-rescue so much easier. If you get out of position, one step up and you're back into position. Rigging, you get your board over the side, it's too low or too high, you can just put it into position. With a rack, flip your board over the side, or you set up to get over the side of the wall, and you're stuck where you're at.
Yeah.
You're not getting back up. If you're high, you can't even disengage your rope behind the pinch point.
Yeah.
So the ID, I think, is the best beginner device out there right now. There are very smooth, similar devices that people could graduate to. However, in my company, and the way that I train is that the whole squad has to use the exact same gear. Mm-hmm. No, I like this one, I like that one. There's no, I'm bringing my personal gear in. One personal gear hasn't been documented, so technically it could be a violation. And running a training company, we're under the spotlight, right? So we're going to run clean. And then also, if I get into a rescue situation and someone rappels in to do a pickoff, and it's like, what the hell is this thing? I don't know how to use it.
Right.
There's just no training on it. That's not where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
We're all on the same gear. Now, it's not like we do test gear, like the Cirrus. I love it. The D4, it's great. It doesn't have all the safety features that the ID has. And back in the day, my average tech had 10, 15, 20 years experience, just like I did. I was working with guys that had the same experience I did, Now it's my average tech has 18 months, 2 years experience, So we can't be putting experienced items in their hands. We want that beginner gear in their hands.
Yeah. Now, does the Petzl ID have parts that wear out, like a rack have to replace the bars, or?
Well, that was the beauty of the rack and bar. You go to stainless steel bars and it lasts forever.
Right.
I love an inverted 4-bar rack. Nothing beats it.
Yeah.
Just smooth, I spent 15 years on one.
Right.
Yes. So that's the problem. A 4-bar even stainless steel rack even today is under $200.
Yeah.
$150. It's going to last you 15, 20 years.
Right.
That ID, that Petzl IDs cost me, what are they now, $280?
Yeah, close to $300, I think. Yeah.
We get a deal on. We buy right, but we buy a lot of stuff and we go straight to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But they do wear out. It's got a cam in it. For an industrial rope access tech, they're typically getting into position, rigging something, getting into position, doing a task, and then they're getting out of position. Their job is done. As window cleaners, we're burning rope, constant descents all the time. So an ID is going to last us a season to 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Missing it, because after that, it's going to do the same thing that your SRT is doing. It's going to drift.
Yeah.
Right? Like I might hold on to one and keep using it, but I'll just double wrap it. No big deal. But I'm not in my tech's hand. When something starts drifting, we're done.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And the reason the SRT is a problem out there in that gray zone, the same reason like some of the old the Mayo rope grabs that you squeeze to go.
Yeah.
Anything that squeeze to go is shunned upon now, because what happens when you have a little jerk or something?
Well, until it wore in, I found it very cumbersome, and it would just instantly release and almost go into free fall when you squeeze it. So then you're trying to figure out what's the sweet spot, and then it lets loose, and then you go, whoom. Yeah.
Because there's no control hand on that thing. It's just handle and go.
Right.
You don't control hand on your rope over a bevel or anything.
Right.
device is your lever is finding a sweet spot, and your rope hand is controlling your speed.
Right. Cool.
Are you watching those comments, Mark? There's been quite a few.
Yeah. Twist lock carabiners, manual locking or auto locking? What do you recommend?
Manual lock or auto locking are required.
Yeah.
Screw gates are no longer legal. Everything requires a minimum of a double locking mechanism. If you're going to go out and buy beaners, go out and buy triple locks, because OSHA is in flux right now. They're learning what we do. Things are changing. There have been manufacturers that have already put out testing where double locks will fail on themselves, where they can roll into each other or disengage coming across the corner, being rolled alongside of a building. The way for us right now, the way that we operate, anything that goes to your gear, like directly to your rope grab, we're putting a double action on. Anything that touches the body is getting a triple action. So like one side of the lanyard is getting a double, the other side is getting a triple. Right. Okay. But pretty soon, I don't be surprised if doubles go away pretty soon and everything's a triple. The problem with the screw gates are if they're upside down, they'll vibrate open.
Okay.
If they roll across the structure, they'll spin open. If you shock load a screw gate beaner, you're going to stretch the threads inside the barrel. Now I need a hacksaw or a vice grips to open that up to rescue you.
Yeah. Okay. So aluminum or stainless or steel?
If you're industrial rope access, you're doing a lot of ascending, go aluminum. If you're doing mainly descents, to go steel. Steel does last longer. It doesn't get popped up as easy. They cost about the same usually nowadays. Aluminum can actually cost more.
Yeah.
But if we ride elevators, we're not doing a lot of ascending, so we don't mind the weight. Right.
Well, a lot of guys like the fancy colors associated with the anodized aluminum, not realizing that if you're actually using it
6 months later,
it's not going to look like that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's coming off.
Yeah.
So instead of buy that guy a packet of stickers for his helmet.
Right. Okay,
subscribe to AWC Magazine. They give you stickers every month.
Yeah, man.
4-point chair, 2-point chair, depending on your
comfort level, man. Whatever you like. If you're a bigger guy, you're going to want a 2-point. If you're a smaller person, you're going to want a 4-point. We don't. A lot of beginners like to be hugged by their chair, right? Mm-hmm. That used to be important when a chair was, when your seatboard used to be life support. We no longer use it in a way that it's life support at all. We're directly connected to our descender, so we could cut the straps away on our seatboard, let it fall to the ground, and we're still hanging there, right? So that being said, now as a qualified person, I'm going to defeat the manufacturer's instructions as soon as I get a seatboard, and I'm going to cut the belt off of it because we don't want it. But I've taken it out of life support at the same time, right? Which I'm comfortable doing. The 4-point, the 2-point gives you more movement. So as window cleaners, we could just rappel out of our harness, or we could use like a Petzl podium, which is a real thin strap.
I've seen guys using that. What do you think of the podium?
Guys like them who come from the industrial rope access world because they're not comfortable with seatboards, and they think using a seatboard makes them look like a window cleaner. And there is a lot of prejudice right now between industrial rope access tech window cleaners. Yeah. We are down upon hardcore. There were back in the day, even in the
Why is 90s, that?
Well, because we have no training compared to them, none whatsoever. We're the cowboys out there doing the stupid shit. We're the ones that are giving them a bad image because we're falling off of buildings. Yeah. Not so much anymore. The last, decade's been nice. Before that, we were losing somebody once a month. Yeah. It was bad. Now you see swing stage accidents. You don't see chair accidents anymore.
Yeah. Someone asked, how often do you have to replace your rope in your gear? How, like your safety gear, your chair? How often do you have to do that? Is that like a yearly thing you have to do?
Inspection schemes are always supposed to follow the manufacturer's instructions on, right? So to supersede all that, we inspect everything quarterly.
Okay.
It's more often so we're not doing it all haphazardly.
Right.
Our stuff gets in every time something comes out of the kit. Every technician has their own kit. Every time something comes out and they put it on, they're going through an inspection sheet every morning.
Okay.
And then on top of that, quarterly, when it's in the shop, a competent or qualified person, a foreman or somebody in management, is doing an inspection on it. And then at that time, they're washing everything too. The rope's going into the wash machine, the harness is getting scrubbed out, but that's happening 4 times a year. So that supersedes everything.
Yeah.
So Manufacturers will, like some rope manufacturers will tell you that rope expires.
2 years, right?
But it's different on different manufacturers. Some will say like certain time length from date of purchase. Some will say date of manufacture. Say date of when you put it in service.
Yeah.
So some of our suppliers might order a container of rope and be sitting on it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And you go buy that rope, it's not fresh, right? So depending on who you bought it from, you could be, violating some manufacturer's instructions on longevity. Now, all that being said, again, the only time you can violate manufacturer's instructions in any time and not get a violation over it if you get caught is if you're under the training and supervision of a qualified person. I fill that role, right? So qualified person, I believe that our inspection schemes are often enough that we're going to notice damage irrelevant of longevity.
Right.
So if my rope is good 4 years in, my rope is still good 4 years in. If I nick something up in 2 months, I'm pulling it. Right. And that's how we're operating. Now is our rope lasting 4 years anymore? No. Some manufacturers we've moved away from because we're only getting like a year and a half out of it. Most of my rope now I'm getting like 2 years out of, and it's not because it's wearing out, it's because my people aren't experienced anymore. They've got a lot less experience and they're damaging it.
They drag it across a gravel roof, stuff like that. Yeah.
Scarfing it up, and if I can see core, I'm pulling it, right?
Yeah.
See something start to pop,
Well, it sounds like you run a tight ship, man, that's nice to hear. Because what you do is inherently dangerous, but be hyper sensitive to the fact that we check our gear, we make sure everyone's safe every time. That's good to hear, man.
We run a different kind of program than companies did traditionally, where guy buys his own shit, he shows up with it in the morning, and you use it because you can't afford to buy new stuff, right?
Right.
Use it, abuse it, whatever. Everyone's on different shit. Doesn't matter. It used to be we'd get up to buildings that ownership has never seen, like they just send us out as a crew, right? For this building, well, what do you tie off to? I don't know. To check it out.
Right.
There's no anchors up there. There's no nothing. So we were doing all kinds. We'd turn the roof into a spider web, right?
Right.
And then we'd call our buddies over. Hey, check this out. Look what I did over here. Look how cool this is. Hey, check this out. Look how ingenious this was. Well, we don't do that anymore. Now we want everything to be better. As a technician, you should never show up to a building and try to figure out how you're going to rig anything. It should already pre-diagrammed and set up for you, right? And then after you rig it the first time, a checklist goes down on that first rigging. That way, it takes all the danger out of it, right? And that's what we've set up a program that we're now trying to push to everybody to use, so you don't have to run haphazardly anymore. My last couple of training sessions, I've been giving that away, and that's what we're doing now. We're making a complete flip. We're giving everything away. Show up at one of our classes, you're going to get everything's just given to you. We're not selling any of that stuff anymore.
As far as the safety training?
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, we do this to give back to the industry. We charge something for it so it can stay sustainable. It's not a profit source, right? So, we've got these compliance packages. We've got these checklists, these protocols. You show up at one of our classes, we're not selling you packages anymore. Take this, it's yours. Take it to your boss. If they got questions, call us.
Yeah.
Right? Because it changes the world that we live in. It changes the safety out there. Coming up the way that I did and being networked the way that I am in the industry, when people fall, it doesn't happen as much anymore, but when people fell, if I didn't know them personally, I usually knew their company or something about them. And that affects me. I couldn't sleep at night. There's times when I get overwhelmed running my company, trying to do things, or where we get swamped, and I've got all the pressures that the owner has and the window cleaner has, where I'm like, okay, I don't want to do training sessions anymore. I need to back off. I'm kind of getting burnt out. Well, then I don't sleep at night. I start having nightmares,
Yeah.
I wake up, Joel, I think that's karma,
Well, it's good to see that your heart and everything's in it. That's very important.
It's easy stuff. None of the stuff is rocket science. It's just being exposed to it.
Well, it's mostly common sense. People get in trouble when they it's like I remember sitting 20 years ago, 15 years ago through Stefan Bright class, and he's like, how do you know if something is going to hold you? Because this was before they implemented tiebacks everywhere. We had to get creative. You kick it, right? You kick it. Or tie to 5 stink pipes and hope that when the first one goes, it doesn't take the other 4 with it. And that happens,
Shit we used to do makes me cringe, man. I mean, we can talk about it now. It's not the way that we operate. There's got to be some kind of, nobody knows who I wasn't working for anybody, so it's not an OSHA violation, right? But we used to I've been an anchor. You know, I've had people clip to me and go over a parapet wall
Yeah.
because we didn't want to carry gear up to the roof. You know, we've taken metal rods with a ring on the end and thrown them down stink pipes. That's such a gamble.
Dude,
Yeah.
holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Got like a fall restraint cable across the roof, and everyone will clip both lines to it, and that thing's just bouncing down, right?
Yeah.
Those were all dead. Like,
Yeah.
side of the building's falling off, you know?
Right.
It's the stupid shit we would do. We would put boards and planks across the alleyways and walk them. We would go out on balcony drops. We used to do balcony drops without rope. We would climb out on the top, no harness, no nothing. Climb out on the top balcony, do the work, take a rope, lower your bucket down, swing it in, slide down the railings, and swing into the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that. I was doing that in high school.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my funniest stories, because there's like when we're hanging you at rope hang, so usually when you're coming, you'll see your rope. When we used to rope from the side, they wouldn't know you were coming. You know, so when you're doing hotels and hospitals, you'd get an eyeful of things that you couldn't unsee.
Right.
Well, we were doing this hotel that doesn't exist anymore up in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, central Wisconsin. I think it was like 10, 12 stories, and we're sliding down the balconies in that manner. And I drop in, boom, on the balcony. It's a hotel, blinds are open, and this is before the internet. So there's magazines laid all over the bed, and there's a guy laying on the bed just giving her. Going to town, right? And I'm like, what do I do? I'm stuck on this balcony. I can't go anywhere, right? My mop, and I'm like, boom, on the glass. He jumps up in the air, magazines fly everywhere, runs into the bathroom. But how embarrassing.
Unbelievable. I actually, this is a question I wanted to ask, and somebody just asked it. Do you keep your tools on bungees or no?
We should. That's the right way to go. We don't always. Whenever we're above public space, always.
Yeah, okay.
Sidewalk, road, always. A lot of the work we do, we're over green space, especially up in the northern Midwest, where you're over, there's no park under you, there's no patio. Then we don't always use bungees.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a question. Do you ever help buildings with certifying anchors now that you know a lot about? Like, does a property manager ever call you?
Yes.
Like, hey, like there needs to be an anchor sitting there.
All the time. I used to do a lot of that. I still get consulted on buildings where I bring in engineering firms or anchor companies on layout, right? I actually bring in companies that I know will allow that to happen because I'm not looking for a ton of penetrations in a roof. It's not a service to the client. It's not needed. We're looking for as few penetrations as possible. So typically we'll go up on a roof and we'll look for structure first that can be certified, and then look at penetrations or through bolts. And really, I want as few anchors on a building as possible because I want to rig it so nobody else can.
It's a lot of penetration.
Yeah, it's a lot of penetration.
Sorry. My Mark Tanner creeped out of me right there for a second.
Nothing wrong with that. But I got since you opened up and told us how you slide down balconies, I'll be, because I was going to say this and see if you cringe, but I got to be honest with you. When they mandated, first it was sit harness, then full body, then sit harnesses were okay. Now it's back to full body. I love the sit harness, and I just use a short lanyard, and I was just always more comfortable on a long drop just sitting in a sit harness. But I actually had, I believe it was a competitor of mine, call up the county, and they came out and said, "Oh, we're told you're not using harnesses." I'm like, "Well, what does this look like?" And he's like, "Well, I'm used to seeing straps." I go, "Well, at that time, this is legal for me to use." I mean, obviously you guys are utilizing a full body.
Now we are.
Yeah.
I came up in a seat harness, no t-shirt on, head on backwards. We never back attached. From day one, we never back attached.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the thing. When it first mandated from sit to full body, 90% of the harnesses were back attached, and I was always like, if you come out of the chair, you're going to face plant the building, and helmet or not, that's not. And self-rescue hanging like this is not going to be fun.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, and then you've got suspension trauma. I heard they mentioned that the other day. Some of the guys were talking about it. It surprised me. Was Fletcher still back attaching?
I think he had it up front.
I'm not sure. He's actually in the chat, so I'm sure he'll answer. But it's odd to me that something so obvious like a back attachment that could cause an issue in rescue, or maybe swinging into, but do they not consult the people using these things?
Well, the deal is, a lot of our technology and what we're using comes from construction industry.
Okay.
Falls under OSHA 1926 versus
Okay.
under OSHA 1910, general industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of applications on a swing stage, or if you're working out along an exposed edge, back attaching keeps your harness out of your way. You're not going to trip on it. It can be cleaner to operate that way.
Mm-hmm.
But working in the environment that we work in, it increases your shock load. It plants your face in the building, like Mark said. It makes self-rescue so much harder, and you're exposed to suspension trauma. We've learned that front attaching is so much cleaner. You're in a much better position when you shock load. You're not shock loading as hard or as far. You can actually sit in your harness all day long like that. Like that's how a lot of guys just operate. Self-rescue is exceedingly easy.
Mm-hmm.
Right in front of you. It's win-win-win. You get into danger when some guys are kind of combining both methods. Like they'll still Zoomer or a hand ascender up when whatever they're using, which is bad news. Or they'll be front attaching, but their lanyard will be too long.
Mm-hmm.
Front attaching is better in every single way except the weakest point of your body are the cervical vertebrae in the back of your neck.
Mm-hmm.
And so when shock loading backwards, you can whiplash, right? So if your whole front system is 18 inches or shorter, that keeps you below the shock force loads that can hurt your neck. Once you start getting bigger than that, you're going to snap your neck.
Yeah.
Fletcher said that he was back attaching up until this season.
Yeah. Okay. Right on.
And he said for the reason you guys are describing.
Yeah, he knows what's up. Yeah,
So
Fletcher's awesome.
Guys, Mike and Fletcher, if he's listening right now, I haven't gotten to watch a lot of your camera work, but I've been listening to these guys talk about it and the technology you're taking into it and the following you're getting. You're both inspiring me. I want to go and buy one of those cameras.
If you don't follow Fletcher on TikTok, man, his TikTok's great, Jeffrey. Squag-a-wag. I'll send you a link to his TikTok. His TikToks are great, man.
That means I got to sign up for TikTok.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. I'm hoping that he does some more YouTube.
He has a YouTube channel too.
Yeah, he does have a
I don't
YouTube,
think
but he doesn't do. He doesn't. He's got a really good following on TikTok. I would if I was him, that's where I'd be focused too. If I had that kind of following, because the videos are much shorter. I have a little better following on YouTube, so I do more on YouTube. It just makes sense, but. Somebody wants to know if you can suspend yourself in a recliner with a cup holder.
Yeah.
Mike,
do it.
You need, with the right rigging. So Jeffrey.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Mark.
No, I just have a question. With all the internet guys that are popping up doing what we do, what's the most cringeworthy thing that you've seen, and have you reached out to anyone and said, hey, you might not want to be doing that?
I learn just like everybody else. I learn how to handle myself in a better way all the time. I was trying to be a better person. There were times when I was very confrontational, in the past, not to do that. Some people I'll contact privately. Some I'll just pretend I didn't see it, depending on what it is, right?
Yeah.
Some people, you learn who you can talk to and who you can't. Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Usually, what I'll recommend first is I'll contact somebody privately and I'll say, "Look, you're exposing yourself here by showing this picture."
Right.
I've got to fight in this game, and even as a trainer, I make it clear to my classes we don't judge. Right. We're all in profession somewhere to become what we want to be. And if we want to become a compliant company, well, we have to start somewhere. Right. And we have to get to that path, and we're all in process to get there somewhere. So I'm not about blowing anybody up or trying to get their company taken down or fines or anything. I'm not in competition like that.
Yeah, I remember TJL knew who I'm talking about. There was a certain someone that came on the podcast early on before me that just preached about safety and anchor points, and guy's kind of a big shot, and he put up a video. Maybe it was pictures. I know it was at least pictures. Obviously, might have been a video of guys straddling the wall, probably on 20 stories, with the bucket sitting on the wall, not tied to anything, and a carabiner behind him swinging his leg around. I'm like, and he's like, we're all about safety. I'm like, you're about safety, and you got a 5-gallon bucket full of water ready to go over the edge with no restraints on it. Attaboy.
Yeah,
Hey.
dudes are, that dude, you're exactly right.
Are probably some of these very flamboyant personalities that have
Yes.
been the last couple of years, and I'm not going to name any names.
Yeah.
Gucci shoes.
The next gift.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I'm the best person in this state or that state or, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
But you see the pictures, where they're just doing stupid shit.
Right.
Like
Yes. I mean, those kind of dudes, like you said, they're just going to they'll expose themselves, and hopefully they don't influence too many people, and so much to the point where maybe someone working for them gets hurt or hurts someone because that guy's a jackass. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I've learned to really subdue things where I want to help as many people as possible if they want.
Right.
Like if someone comes to me, I'm going to send you down the path. Let's go. Right. Let me show you everything I can. What you do with it's up to you, but I'm going to show you the process, right, and how to implement it. But if people don't want it, so be it, right? I can't force myself on people, and
Right.
it's I'm not out there. We don't even market. I mean, I help out Cronin. We do some ads with him in Window Cleaner magazine.
Mm-hmm.
I've very rarely you guys ever see me on a podcast like this.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why when Mark said Jeffrey's going to do it, I'm like, no way.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Jeffrey. We've never met or spoke, but I've always recommended you
Yes.
online when people are asking questions. And I'm like, I wish
we have
I
on
had-
here for years. Anytime someone asks for training,
I
we're
said
like,
I wish I had a Jeffrey
Yeah.
Scott, because I was
Right.
taught by a guy that had 30 years experience, came up block and tackle, and he basically taught me the knots, and he taught me on low buildings, and he taught me that you're going to deviate from what I'm telling you, but you need to always remember these 5 basic rules.
Right.
Okay, because you'll always be safe. Now, you're not going to clean the way I cleaned because your style is different than mine. You're going to realize what works for you might not necessarily work for anyone else, but the bottom line is we'll keep you safe. There was no Jeffrey Scott out there, 25 years ago.
Well,
Right.
there's many people out there now. You've got Draper's out there doing his thing. He's got I hear Jorge's out there doing some stuff. There's a few others now, and the more the merrier. Get the knowledge there.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I need to market against people or there's any competition there.
Yeah.
I can answer any questions or try to always find the best solution. But this isn't my. I never plan on getting rich doing that, right? Doing the training thing. I do plan on finding a very comfortable retirement from the sale of my other 2 companies.
right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But with the safety training company, it's not like I have underling trainers right now or, other guys that can go out and do this. The industry isn't there yet in a way where I can find those guys and process this in a way where I can run that company without being involved in it, right?
Right.
And I'll be 50 in a couple of months. I still get on the wall, but I'm not out there pushing like I used to be able to. I'm going to do a couple of training drops with my guys. I might show them how to do something, but I'm not going to be out there for 10 hours a day anymore.
Right.
Even with training, I enjoy it. I really enjoy learning from all these people that I get subjected to. I enjoy the travel. It's really been cool having the ability, because in my course, we go up and rappel off of a building, even in a private course. So I've gotten the opportunity to rappel off buildings in just about every metro in the country and see very beautiful places, and do some cool things. But I don't know if that's sellable, and it's still not something I can do forever,
Yeah, it's a very limited market anyway. So, and the end goal is to keep people safe. So if you don't get training from me, get training from someone else.
Yeah, someone, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, many times I've seen, it goes back to social media. I just got an opportunity at this job, and they show a picture of a 7-story building, or a 12-story building, and they're like, so they're gonna go buy some rope and do this job. And I think I might have been there at one point, wanting to learn so much. And I'm like, dude, how about you get someone that knows how to do this job and then go for free? Like when I started, I would see a guy washing windows on a rope. I pull my truck in there, I sit there and watch him do a couple drops, and then I just approach him and go, hey, you mind if I come to the roof with you? You know, I'm a harmless dude. I'm a window cleaner. I just want to see what you're doing. I'm fascinated by this. And most of the time they'd be like, I can't do that. And then occasionally you get a good guy that would go, yeah, carry my bucket. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? And I just watch so that, because there was nothing out there. There was no internet videos. There was no
Right.
Jeffrey Scott. There was no Mike Draper. There was no I-14, nothing. You know, it was
Right.
nothing.
Right.
It was just, you know,
That's
the want
crazy,
to learn.
man.
Yeah.
The pioneer days of window cleaning, back when Jesus was cleaning windows and stuff, that must have been crazy, dude.
Right. Well, the guy that trained me, the guy that trained me, came up racking
Moses?
Moses, yes. he came up block and tackle, so I got a good learn of how that actually worked, and was one of the very first guys in Hawaii to use a rack and bar. They took it over from caving, and they were like, I wonder if this will work. You know, he's like one of the first 5 guys to actually throw a rope off a building that wasn't this big around and required 600 feet to do 5 stories. You know what I'm saying? They're like, wow, we can actually do this, you know? And
using cornice hooks.
right. Yeah.
Well, I actually have a question outside of window cleaning. Just to break it up a little bit. I mean, you're not always cleaning windows, and you're not always teaching people how to be safe cleaning windows. What do you do what's your favorite thing to do when you're not doing this?
What I'm doing right now, that's why I've got this blue screen behind me.
So what are you doing now? I mean, I already know, but
Well, it's been about 14, 15 years now we've been operating the company. We're fairly systemized now, where I'm not required to do everything anymore. You know, I've got people in place. A lot of my year, I've been able to free up my time now, especially in the wintertime where we slow down. We're in the northern Midwest where it's cold. So I step away typically around Thanksgiving, and I head out to Colorado. I rent a place in Breckenridge, and I snowboard my ass off all winter long. I go back and forth a little bit. Through the winter, I'm probably back in Wisconsin, maybe a week a month. And then I'm hopefully trying to run things this year so that I'll be back in Colorado 1 week a month through the summer. I like to ride motorcycles and stuff too. I've got a touring bike, and I've got a dirt bike, so I can bring those out here. Otherwise, I snowboard.
So how long you been snowboarding? A long time?
Not really, not as long as you would think. I was a lifetime skier.
Okay.
And there was skiers hated snowboarders, snowboarders hated skiers. Snowboarding didn't even exist when I started skiing.
Right.
So I was a lifetime skier. From northern Wisconsin, we had some small areas that I could ride at fairly frequently, a lot of ice and snow. But I had wrestled as a young man. I was a linebacker in football in high school. I played rugby in college. And then being a downhill skier hardcore for a long time, I shredded my knees.
Right.
Absolutely shredded them. At 39, I got my right knee replaced, became titanium. And they told me I couldn't ski anymore. So that's when at 40, I started snowboarding.
Okay. Cool, man.
So now I'm 49.
I mean, that sucks that you got a robo knee, but cool that you've been doing. I mean, because I love hearing about the industry and stuff like that, but it's also cool to kind of hear people's hobbies and their exit plan. Like, when I'm done doing this is what I want to. So you're gonna quit cleaning windows and just be like a road. Like, you're just gonna be a rogue riding around on a motorcycle and snowboarding and stuff. That's the plan, right?
Kind of. That's kind of now.
Right.
When I do these training sessions, the course lasts 2 days. I usually do a day in travel, day out travel. But when possible, I'll extend my trip personally, right? And I'll bring my kid out. My kid's 19 now, but I'm trying to take her along, expose her to the world. But if I can turn into a motorcycle trip, I do. If I turn it into a road trip, I do. In the last 3 to 4 years, I've been through the entire lower 48.
Cool.
Either in car or motorcycle. A lot of that work related, A couple of years back, we went on a 2-month road trip through the middle of COVID. Went out and spent a month in Tahoe. Actually stayed at Jamie Pollan's place in Tahoe.
Okay.
Got to get to know them pretty well, and then toured the West Coast. But I think in my retirement, you can only snowboard so long.
Right.
And I feel like I'm kind of just now getting to the point where I should have been 10 years ago, right, on a snowboard. Trying to push my limits a little bit.
Right.
But at some, it's regardless. inevitably, at some point, if we keep doing this, there's going to be an injury that stops this.
Right.
Right. I'm trying to be. I ride for tomorrow. I ride old man style, big turns, but I like steep. I don't ride in the park. I'm not taking crazy jumps and stuff. But still, at some point, that's going to change. So my plan would be when I sell out to move onto a boat and then become a vagabond that way.
Nice.
There's a water route called the Great Loop. Runs from the Great Lakes, so I'd start up Milwaukee right by me. You go up the Chicago River to the Mississippi River to the Ohio River to the Tom Bigsby Waterway, then down into the Gulf. You can either cross Florida to Tampa or go around, either go up to the islands or not. Come up the intercoastal waterways, check out the Chesapeake, go up to the Hudson, the St. Lawrence, come back in. You get to see Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and come back into the Great Lakes.
Oh, that's cool. Now, you mentioned a daughter. Is it a family business? Is she in the business or no?
She wants absolutely no part of it whatsoever. Working one day for her dad would be the end of her life.
Right.
Like she would think that's the biggest hell that exists, right? No, I don't think there's any future.
And you strike me as a guy that doesn't even bother you at all. You're like, that's fine. Because I know your father was a window cleaner, and you kind of went, you like took that from him, but you're okay with like, I don't need to pass this on.
If she was interested, I'd be super interested in doing that, right?
Right.
I've got growing up, I learned an awful lot from my dad. A ton of work ethic for sure. A lot of pulling up from his own. He's a very successful person now. Lives a very nice retirement. There's a lot to be learned there. So I did have those privileges. I'd like to be able to pass that stuff on to her, but it doesn't have to be in window cleaning to do that.
Right.
I've learned entrepreneurship, and I don't care what she does. Hopefully, I can get her to do it for herself because I believe that's a path to freedom. In our industry right now, something that Mark had talked about earlier, like how do you even learn this? You just go find that guy that, hey, let me carry your bucket up to the roof and watch it for a day.
Right.
I think things are changing now and it's good to see where window cleaning is starting to turn into more of a trade and a profession. I think it's still its own worst enemy in that startup is so easy.
Yes.
It's got these. It's such a dichotomy of people in our industry. You got the guy that walks out of prison after 15 years, has $12 in his pocket, goes and buys a mop and a squeegee, now runs an empire.
Right.
And you also have that, multi-generational guy that was able to take on 3 generations of a company. I've got remorse that I wasn't able to do that, like take that company and take it to the next level where I kind of had to start from scratch and do my own thing. And I would like to see her have that advantage where she could take something and build on it and not have to recreate.
Right.
But creation nowadays isn't what it used to be because of avenues like this right here and what things we were talking about earlier. That's at your fingertips.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also brings a third layer in the guys that go to school to be businessmen and get out and I find an entry-level way to start a money-making scheme, and they're like, oh, well, it'll cost me like $100 to become a window cleaner, start a window cleaning company. Under $500, I'm ready to go. And then, whether or not they make it or not, of course, is just on their character. But there's so many, the social media aspect of how this has kind of taken off in that way. And it's not huge, but it's still not what it was when I first got into social media. You didn't see a lot of sharing and it being public. It was still a little behind the veil a little bit, but it has definitely attracted some people that probably otherwise would not have known anything about it or its profitability. So
yeah, and
strange.
I think it's its own worst enemy because everything we just said and how easy it is to get into, but then that doesn't work when you get into the large commercial and high-rise end of it.
Right.
No.
Because you can't say, hey, I can see how they're doing this. I'm going to jump in and learn.
Right.
But we are starting to see that transition where people are treating it as a trade where, okay, if I want to run this style of company with these kinds of services, then I need to go apprentice with this style of company that runs this style of services.
Could not agree more.
Do these and work my way through. And then, once I've earned my nut, that I can, and that's all it really comes down to. You got to put enough in your pocket where you don't have to work for the next.
Well, I think that's kind of where I think doing what you do and doing what I do, that's what separates it is you actually, you can't just, I'm going to go buy a rope and hang off a building. You can't do that. You know what I mean? I mean, you can, but you're probably going to die. You know what I'm saying? So almost like an apprenticeship, like you said, of learning how to do what you do, the high-rise work is, it's weird to me that isn't a thing.
It probably will be.
You know what I mean?
At some point, yeah.
I mean, what about the robots, dude?
In the union areas, like Chicago, downtown Chicago, New York, a lot of California, they have window cleaning unions.
Right.
Pretty sure there's no apprenticeship programs.
What about the robots and the drone window cleaners, dude? They're going to put you out of business any day now, dude.
And whenever this last year, was that the one that was in? Whatever convention, they had some drone guys in there, right? Out in the Middle East, and of course that interests me. But I don't see it taking over what we do anytime soon.
Right.
I think it's got feasibility in the wind industry because they're out in the cornfields. The problem with drones, and I just like this camera thing that I've gotten interested in from these other gentlemen, with drones, the same type of deal, but in metros, you can't fly them.
Right.
I'm in Madison. It's a capital. I can't, in my whole downtown, I can't fly a drone.
Well,
I bought a drone for YouTube videos, dude, and I can't even fucking fly it in my backyard. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm afraid to take it to someone's house and crash it into something. You know what I mean?
I've seen the drone that will spray a soft wash chemical on a roof. Now, bar wind blowing that all over people walking by, that's one thing, but it will work for that. You can take, I've always said this, the biggest pressure washer, you can even add hot water to it and go out and pressure wash a dirty truck, and guess what? When it dries, it's going to be striped up and dirty.
Right.
Without agitation.
Right.
There is no cleaning windows. I don't care what anybody says.
So you take the regional thing out of the equation. Say you could fly the drone anywhere. Now let's take it to a high rise, right? So they're going to run DI, right, and they're going to run it through a pressure system. They've got some that have reservoirs that can carry a certain amount, which isn't enough to get anything done. And they've got the hose systems, right? So even the hose systems, when you go up, you're carrying weight from what I've researched.
Right.
And your max height right now is under 200 feet. Right? So if you want to go higher than that, now I've got to have a platform anyway where I'm staging that hose where it can take off again from, right?
Right.
So have I really gained anything?
No. It's just like water-fed pole over 4 stories. What are we really doing?
But another step, because now there's no agitation.
Right.
Right. You can hold your water-fed pole at 70 feet and rinse a window. That doesn't mean it's getting it clean.
Right.
You're wetting it.
I had some guy in a group today tell me, you wouldn't believe the scrubber getting on these windows. And I'm like, listen, dude, I'm a zero destroyer guy all day, but come on, bro. I mean, there's a limit. You know what I mean? There's a limit.
So IPC did build a high-rise machine on cable, 10, 15 years ago. Was like a car wash machine on a rope, right? Spray DI, spun one way up, another way down. I had the opportunity to work right alongside those things. I set them up. I worked with them, worked the remotes. They work great on curtain wall glass with shallow frames. You can get some stuff done, but it's still a water-fed pole. They don't get into the corners.
No.
Get into a corner on a building. If there's wind is blowing at all, it's worthless. And they typically need to be retrieved by somebody on rope when they get hung up on shit.
Right. If you got like you said, a building with ledges to building with lights, forget it.
Now, it does work. It's awesome. The first time I got to work alongside one, I took it as a challenge, right? I had my team out there, and there was a separate team running this thing. We all got to the same building. Now, we had our sections we were doing where we knew this thing couldn't get into already. Right. But we're going to see how many drops, we could get against this thing, right? But we got up there, got set up quick, started slamming drops, boom, boom, boom. We're like, this thing's never going to catch us. They didn't get that thing running until almost lunchtime. It was like 11 o'clock. But once they did, it fucking smoked us.
Really?
We couldn't come close.
Wow.
On curtain wall, flat curtain wall glass, it will outperform. Well, now quality,
quality. That's what I was just about to ask.
I mean, when we write contracts for our company, our contracts say wash all windows, wipe down all frames. We carry a rag and a towel even on high-rise drops. We're wiping down every frame. We're detailing every window.
Yeah.
You're just not going to get that off of a machine of any type.
No.
Yeah, it's just unless you build a robot person. And then what are we doing?
It'll be, it'll be gravity boots of some type.
I had a building that we were doing with it was 18 stories with about a 16-foot overhang, curtain wall glass below the overhang, And the building manager called me up and goes, I need a favor. And I'm like, what do you need? And she says to me, can you come sit in on this meeting? It's not my decision, but the owners have sent this window cleaning robot sales team to come down and talk to us. So I go, absolutely. I go, now I will be respectful. I go, but I'm going to ask him some questions that if he's not a window cleaner, he's some engineer, he's probably not going to be able to answer. And this was an Israeli company, believe it or not. And the video of their equipment was quite impressive. It's all a similar thing, a rotating brush and spraying water. This machine actually, they would come down and program the machine for the building. So it knew when it was going to go beyond a little bit of a ledge. It knew if there was a light there. So they literally hung this thing, and it would map the building and then input it into the software. And as long as all that worked, theoretically it would work. So I go, they were trying to sell it to this building. And then, of course, when they saw who I was, they wanted me to buy one, and it was a 6-figure piece of equipment. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just cut to the chase here. There's a 16-foot overhang with no pigeonholes in the front. I want to know how that thing is going to reach up under and get those top windows, because we struggle. I mean, it's better than it was, is what we're getting out of it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and they just looked at me like, we didn't notice that. And I'm like, okay, well, that's like 50% of this building is a 16-foot overhang. What do you plan to do? But it had all kind of fail-safes. If the wind grabbed it and started freaking out and coming away from the building, it would shut itself down and lower itself to the ground. I mean, it was highly elaborate compared to some of the ones that I've seen. I've never really witnessed one work. But I mean, if their sales pitch is, well, it's $100,000 piece of equipment plus another $20,000 to map the building and tech support and everything. And they're like, but who's going to run this? Well, your chief engineer. Well, he's working on the AC, the lighting, the lady that complained the office is too hot. He doesn't have time to babysit this thing.
Right.
And then he points to me and he's like, well, you could get your window cleaner involved. And I'm like, but I got guys that are trained to do this the right way, that take a wage. I certainly don't have 6 figures to spend on this and hope someone calls me to set it up on their building.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that technology in any of our lifetimes is going to take over. Unless it was specifically built into the building when the building was made.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different, like a track system with a swing stage,
Those exist. The top part of what used to be the Sears Tower in Chicago.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I don't know what the hell they call it now. Something. Changed name anyway. It used to be like the tallest thing around, but that's got robotic systems on the top floors.
Yeah. Well, I know the Luxor in Vegas tried for the longest time to get that thing cleaned, and they're back on their knees on that job. I heard
on a sled riding those trails up and down. They do have a power restraint system on it now, though.
Yeah.
Used to be, because the angle used to be, no matter what you did, you were going to swing out.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Right.
Vegas is crazy, man. The wind's out there. There was a death out there 5-6 years ago. I was called in to train the company afterwards, but just they get what's called the Santa Ana winds, which will come out of nowhere. 60, 80 mile an hour winds. Just
wow.
That's scary.
That is not good.
Yeah.
So, how much longer is Jeffrey Scott going to be involved?
Ideally, I'd probably have. I'd say in our actual operating companies, I'd like to be out in about 5 years.
Yeah.
The training, it can be open-ended. I fly out I either drive back to Wisconsin or fly out of here to go to a private course, just like I'd fly out of there. No matter what I'm doing, I can get to an airport and fly out and go help somebody out if they need it.
So when you fly out, you bring your own personal gear. Do you have the company that you're training purchase? You tell them you need to get this, and this.
It depends on the situation. If it's a company that's always operating, like I said, I'm not a dictator. My kit isn't what you have to use.
Yeah.
I explain how to select equipment. Mm-hmm. I do show what we selected and why, and you're free to copy us. But typically, if they've got a kit different, then my goal in that training session is to either conform their kit to my processes or conform my processes to their kit.
Right.
If that's not possible, we have to have a conversation.
Right.
And then they have to make a decision. That doesn't affect me. I'm just giving them the best knowledge they have to make that decision, right?
Yeah.
If they have equipment or they want to switch to us, we help them purchase that equipment. We don't sell much ourselves. We have deals with our suppliers and manufacturers where we've located the very cheapest place we can get things.
Yeah.
So in our class, we get a full equipment list with everything that we use, what we pay for, and where we get it from.
Right. And what is your
order that for you? We mark it up slightly so the office gets paid to do that.
Sure.
And then we have that kit dropped off at your place.
Right. So,
but if it's a training program and I'm flying and they don't have kits, I'll either have to have it shipped, or depending on where it's at, maybe that's a drive that I make.
Okay. So, and what is your preferred rope? I know you're using 7/16. Do you like?
We're back on New England KM3.
Yeah.
We're using Black Max for our main line.
The black is fast, man. My guys didn't like the Black Max when they got it.
In
a rack and bar.
Yeah. Well, we're running through IDs now. Last year, at the end of the year, we were working longer than I wanted to because of our staffing issues. So we were working in some severe cold, and the IDs just would not work on frozen rope. So I had to go back to rack and bars and do a short training session, and we pulled those up for that.
Now, does the ID, like, I know if I put rack and bar and I use the black rope, it's lightning fast. I don't understand. I guess it's a tighter weave.
It's a tighter weave. Yeah.
Okay. And my guys were like, it's just too fast. We added another bar and we're okay with it. We'll wear this out, but don't buy it again. And they just like the either Blue Water or the KM3. But my question to you is, they noticed the big difference in the rack and bar with the different selection of ropes. Now, does the ID pretty much work the same with anything?
No. Rope does make a difference in every device. And so the Black Max is a KM3. The only difference is the sheath.
Yeah.
The sheath is much tighter and it's woven finer. So the stretch is slightly different, and then it's more abrasion resistant, so we're not garfing it up as fast.
Yeah.
But the big thing is, and the most important thing is it's water resistant.
Okay.
When your rope gets wet, no matter what tensile strength you start at, you're losing 30 to 40%.
Really?
Right off the top, just from it being wet. And our rope is always wet.
Yeah.
So the resisting rope becomes valuable, right?
Okay.
Now our safety line, which we're never riding, we don't need that. You should never ever ride your safety line. That's always brand new, always pristine. That way when it takes a shock load, it's there for you, right? So it really doesn't matter what sheath is on there.
Are you using the same? Like, I see guys that will use more of a braided rope for a safety with like that 3/4 stuff.
That's because there's no benefit to that except cost.
Okay.
Bad. Yeah. There's no stretch to that. It's gonna snap your back.
Yeah, you wouldn't like the way I did things for a long time. I'll be honest with you. No, I take a 600 foot and fold it in half, tie it off 2 separate points, and whatever one I grab, usually the one on the right was my descent line, and
that's how we all, man. All of us. I still do. Now, if you have the opportunity, you want a safety line that's in a different color.
Yeah, there you go.
It identifies it that you never ride it.
Right.
We threw 2 or 3 main lines before we replaced the safety line.
Yeah.
We were running PMI rope for a little bit. It was Extreme Pro Plus. We liked it, the idea of it. The idea is that the sheath is attached to the core the whole way through. So if you have a sheath cut, like on a KM3 or most rope, if you have a sheath cut all the way around, that sheath is going to slide right down the core.
Yeah.
On that Extreme Pro Plus, you could ring it and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen that video where they take an ascender, the rope grabs that everybody was using, and they drop a line on it. It just takes the sheath right off the rope. Down it goes. Yeah.
It's using those things, and they're back attaching with them.
Yeah.
They take one shock load on there, they're dead.
But you know what? I went from that to I don't know what brand it was, but the trailing type that just follows you down. And it's a mental thing that thing, am I going to fall faster than it? You know what I'm saying? That's the first thing that comes to mind. You don't have to touch it. It's always going to be around your knee. But if I come out of this chair, is that thing going to be riding to the ground with me?
If that thing falls faster than you, then you're not drinking enough beer, eating enough cheese.
Right. Yeah, it's a mental thing because, like I said, once you learn with something, it's very hard to change.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. In our industry, everyone's rope descent systems because you can get trained into that easier. It's mostly down only. You don't need all the extras. But if once guys do start heading up that industrial rope access path, it changes everything.
Yeah.
It's like, why, then it's that whole, I've been doing this that way for 10 years. Why would I do it different? That all goes away.
Right.
You realize there are better methods. There are better things. And it's not like mine's better than yours. It's that we're evolving. There's always be something better.
So I probably know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it for everyone else. Do you find it easier to teach somebody rope descent that knows absolutely nothing about it, or versus taking someone that has, say, 5 years experience that could be negative experience?
Goes both ways.
Yeah.
So even someone with 5 years of bad habits is just it could be either way. That's not harder than teaching somebody that knows nothing.
Our approach is a little different. Like,
okay.
Owners used to be afraid to send us their technicians that had 20, 30 years experience because they thought they'd be closed-minded like they are with them. Like, I don't want
right.
That's how they are with their ownership. But once they get into our course and we start talking like, hey, I'm you, right? We're there.
Right.
Everything that we're talking about, I've had the same experience.
Hey, I was once a goofy guy. You know what I mean? I once did things that weren't the right thing to do.
There's a lot of times people will say, well, is this okay or is that okay? And my answer has to be, well, that's not wrong, but this is better.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of where we're going. Like, what you're doing is not wrong, but this is a better option now. And that doesn't mean one's right and one's wrong. It means, another year down the road, there's gonna be a better option yet. There's gonna be new rope grafts, new rope, new techniques. We just got to roll with it. But when we bring those guys in, they seem to open up pretty well. Those guys that have had the experience, and then the new guys, they're usually super attentive because they're afraid.
Right.
Right. Fear is an educator. The other guys don't have fear. They have, oh well, I've been doing it this way. Why is your way better?
Right.
Once you get that down, it goes away. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
With the guys that are afraid, it's once you start taking them steps and building the confidence, then as we move through one thing, then the fear goes away.
Right.
There's been situations where, like Mark asked earlier, we get up to a roof, our guys are petrified. Are they afraid? Are they, hesitant? A lot of times, if I'll get us in fall restraint, I'll let other guys keep operating, keep moving, and we'll walk out to the edge, right, in fall restraint, and we'll start having a conversation. That conversation will drift away from window cleaning or rope or just off into the world, and then you bring them back to their situational awareness, and things are different now because now they've been in that space without their head being wrapped around it.
Right.
Like I said, in all this time, there's been 3 people ever that haven't gone over the side.
So you're essentially talking them off the ledge. I like how you do that, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of
Piper over here. Piper here.
There's no force. It's everything's voluntary. And to get a certificate of training, you don't have to get over the wall. It's not necessary. It's not.
Is there a particular reason why? You start so high? I mean, why wouldn't you start on 6 stories? Why is it, like you said, 12 or 13 stories? Do you prefer for it to be higher, or?
Well, technically, as a window cleaner, the higher you are, the safer you are.
Really?
When you get closer to the ground, things become more dangerous because your equipment doesn't have as much time to react.
Oh, okay.
How much rope is below you? It does matter how much rope is above you.
So in that situation where you're wanting to train somebody, you want a little wiggle room. You don't want to take them like.
That's the reason, and a lot of the course is like, this is like swimming. It doesn't matter, and we want to get over that mental break right off the bat. I don't get over a 4-story building, send them home to wherever they're working, and they can't do it, right? So it's like swimming. It doesn't matter how much water is below you. You're only using the 2 feet on the top, right? It doesn't matter how much rope is below us. It'd be inevitable, right? It does matter how much is above you. And so I'm trying to reverse their fear. A lot of new techs will come down, and there's accidents that could happen this way, but new techs will come down the building, they'll be afraid. They're at the top. I'm high, I'm afraid, it's dangerous. And come down the building, you become more comfortable because of perspective. Now I'm only 2 stories up, I'm only 3 stories up. This will still kill me, but it looks like I'm on the ground now.
Right. I'm halfway there, yeah.
dancing around. Well, I know a couple situations where, the guy's girlfriend shows up at the end of the day. He wants to show off. I'm a window cleaner now. He does like the top 20 stories, gets to the parking deck at the bottom, sees the girlfriend, disconnects the safety, goes into a speed repel.
Right.
Burns his hand, loses the handle on the thing, falls. Right. That same situation happens over and over and over again. I know several guys personally that the same things happen too. Right. So I'm trying to flip that perspective that when you're up high, you're safe. When you're down low, that's when you want to start making sure your rope grab's up high, your safety line is tensioned. You want to see what's around you. You got a lot more swing now, so that means obstacles become a bigger danger, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just
Wow.
changing.
And I never
thought of it like that.
Yeah, me neither.
makes
Me
sense.
neither.
Yeah.
See, that's why you ask questions. That's why we
Right.
have these kind of people on the podcast. I got to tell you, Jeffrey, this is exactly what I had hoped it would be. I mean, you did absolutely excellent. And if you ever do entertain, yeah, it's been 2 hours already. If you if you ever entertain YouTube, a channel or anything like that, please let us know so we can get everybody over there to watch it, because like I said, like you said, being able to give this training out to people and not necessarily making them pay for it, if there's a way for you to show some of these little tidbits of information, I know people would gobble that up, man. I mean, that's super awesome. So we definitely appreciate you coming on the show, man. Is there anything that you would like to plug or anything like that while you're on here? You don't seem like a plug guy to me. You're like, I don't really advertise. It's,
not really a plug guy.
Good.
We're just like everybody else out there right now.
Right.
Ours, our window cleaning company. We've got more work than we can ever get to.
Right.
We can work as fast as we want. We're not after market share. We cherry pick our jobs for efficiency, for win-win situations. Our issue right now is finding people.
Right. I think that's everyone's problem, really.
Yeah.
As an industry, we need to learn how to market to employees.
Yeah.
We need to learn how to make this industry look attractive.
Yes.
We need to learn how to show these newcomers that we want to hire how this can become a career path and what they can achieve on the back end, right?
Right.
Those are our challenges right now. As far as the safety training company goes, that is what it is. When there's need, it'll find us. When there's not, there's not.
Right.
If you want to throw our phone number out there somewhere, they can find us. I'm currently not on anything except for Facebook. I don't even use it personally a lot. I put a lot of work pictures out there. Snowboarding. If you want to find us through Facebook.
And that's Saftey Green.
Yeah, Saftey Green Training, Green Building Maintenance Services. You can even just find Jeffrey Scott, and like TJ said, there's about 1,000 of them out there, though.
Well, not on Skype there are. Yeah. Luckily, as I was scrolling through, that's how I found him. I found the rope, his picture, his profile picture. That's what I was looking for. This little tiny picture, and I was like, "Ooh, that matches." I'm clicking this dude and sending him a message.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and swell your bald head up a little bit, because I've known a lot of high-rise guys in the time I've been cleaning windows. I've sat with Mike Draper, who's a wealth of knowledge. But I wanted to tell you that you coming on was important. You were the first person I thought of, and you have exceeded what I expected out of you. And
yes.
you, my friend, are a wealth of knowledge,
yes.
and I appreciate that.
Not only just the safety stuff, but the business too. You can, really good show. You did I knew you, like I told you before all the guys got on Skype, because Jeffrey and I were on about 30 minutes beforehand, but you were on the list, me and Mark's list. There's like a list of guys who were like, we got to get this guy on eventually. You just knocked one off, and it was excellent. So I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Let's do it again. If you develop a bunch of questions or people,
Absolutely.
Anytime, yeah.
But if people have questions they want answered, either give them a path to reach out for me, or let's do this again, right?
Yeah.
The pleasure.
Definitely. We'll definitely reach out to you again and have you on again, man. But I hope everyone enjoyed the show, and we'll be back next week with Michael Draper. I mean, Mark should just take over the podcast. I might just quit and let Mark do it now.
No, I ain't got
I'm here for background noise.
I don't have that gift.
Me, this whole month, Jeffrey, me and Seth and Jacob have just been sitting quiet and let Mark run the show. This is Mark's March Madness. He's like, I want to do a whole month dedicated to high rise, man. And I'm like, that's
we've never done it, and no one's ever done it.
No one's ever done it.
It's an untouched, uncapped part of window cleaning that guys that are just ground level window cleaners would appreciate. You know what I'm saying?
Not only that, the what really I feel like I think people really are gonna enjoy with this is the characters, the people.
Right.
There's the people in High Rise, clearly, as we've shown on this podcast this month so far, the people that are of high character that work on the sides of buildings. I mean, like Fletcher was amazing, Mike was amazing, and Jeffrey, another amazing dude. So I know Michael Draper is going to be awesome too. So this is I really appreciate you coming on, and it doesn't have to be March for you to come back on. Maybe we'll reach out to you again. I'm sure, dudes, this will blow up, and guys will want to have a bunch of questions. We'll see when you can come back on again and have another chat with us. All right?
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Keep spreading the love.
All right, man. See you
Thank you,
guys.
Jeffrey.
Peace.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.